My name is Elena Mercer, and the morning my sister tried to move 3 strangers into my house, she discovered that none of her keys worked. She stood beneath the stone archway, stabbing the electronic key against the reader while 2 moving vans and a rental truck blocked the quiet street behind her. Her boyfriend, Callum, kept telling the movers to wait. His parents were arguing beside a collection of leather suitcases, antique cabinets, and taped cardboard boxes. Then the front door opened from the inside. My sister's irritation vanished. 2 security officers stood in the foyer. Behind them were a locksmith, a property manager, and my attorney, holding the document that would destroy every plan she had made for my home. The key slipped from her fingers and struck the marble floor. "Alina!" she screamed when she finally saw me. "What have you done?" To understand my answer, you need to know what she had said less than 24 hours earlier. During Sunday dinner, she had raised her wine glass and announced, "Callum's parents are moving in tomorrow. If you don't like it, you can find somewhere else to live." She said it inside a house I had purchased with 15 years of my life, and I smiled, not because I agreed, because by then it was already too late for her. 5 years earlier, the same house had represented everything I believed my family deserved. It stood on a wooded hillside outside Asheville, North Carolina, far enough from the city to feel peaceful but close enough for my work. Built from pale stone and dark timber, it had 6 bedrooms, a library, a glass-walled study, and a wide terrace overlooking the Blue Ridge Mountains. I had bought it after becoming a partner at a regional property development firm. I was 35 then, unmarried, exhausted, and proud of having survived a career in which nearly every senior person had once mistaken my silence for weakness. The house cost $3.6 million. My father called it reckless. My mother called it beautiful. Dad died 8 months before I completed the purchase. A heart attack took him on an ordinary Monday morning while he was preparing coffee. There had been no farewell, no final conversation, only a telephone call that divided my life into before and after. My mother, Margaret, tried to remain strong, but losing him changed her. I invited her to live with me as soon as I received the keys. She chose the bedroom facing the mountains and filled the house with flowers, music, and the smell of cinnamon bread. For 18 months, the place felt like a home. Then doctors found cancer in her pancreas. During the next 2 years, I arranged my meetings around hospital appointments. I answered business calls from treatment rooms and reviewed contracts beside her bed. When she became too weak to travel, nurses came to the house. Our housekeeper, Naomi Price, stayed through all of it. Naomi had worked for my parents since I was in college. She was more than an employee. She knew which songs calmed Mom, which medicines made her sick, and how to make her laugh when pain had taken everything else. Mom died in the mountain-facing bedroom on a rainy April evening, with Naomi holding one hand and me holding the other. Afterward, the house became painfully quiet. My younger sister, Tessa, was 27 at the time. She had always been different from me, charming, impulsive, and convinced that unpleasant consequences were temporary inconveniences someone else would eventually solve. Mom had protected her from almost everything. When Tessa failed to pay rent, Mom paid it. When she abandoned a college course, Mom blamed the professors. When she lost 3 jobs in 2 years, Mom said she had not found her purpose. I knew all that. Yet when Tessa called me crying 3 weeks after the funeral, I did not hesitate. "I can't stay in my apartment," she said. "Everything reminds me that Mom is gone. I feel completely alone." "You don't have to be alone," I told her. "Come stay with me." She arrived with 12 boxes and promised it would only be for a few months. At first, having her there helped both of us. We ate dinner together, sorted through family photographs, and spent evenings talking beside the fireplace. Sometimes we laughed about our childhood until we cried. I believed grief had brought us closer. 4 months later, she introduced me to Callum Reed. He arrived for dinner wearing a tailored jacket, an expensive watch, and the confidence of a man accustomed to being believed. He described himself as an independent investment strategist developing private capital opportunities. When I asked what sort of investments, his answer lasted 5 minutes and explained nothing. Tessa watched him as if he were delivering a speech at the United Nations. After dinner, Naomi found the price label inside his jacket. It had been purchased that afternoon and carefully tucked away rather than removed. "Perhaps he intends to return it," she murmured. I laughed then. I should have paid more attention. Callum began spending weekends at the house. Soon weekends became 4-night visits. Then toiletries appeared in Tessa's bathroom, suits occupied the guest closet, and a silver sports car remained permanently in my driveway. Nobody asked whether he could move in. One evening, I returned from Chicago and found him opening a bottle from my father's wine collection. "That bottle wasn't for guests," I said. He examined the label without embarrassment. "Tessa told me everything here belongs to the family. It belongs to me." His smile remained, but his eyes changed. "Of course," he said. "Legally." That final word stayed with me. I spoke to Tessa privately the next morning. I told her Callum could visit, but he could not live there without contributing or discussing it with me. She folded her arms. "Why does everything have to become a business transaction with you?" "Because this is my house. It was supposed to be Mom's home too. It was. I bought it for her, and Mom would have wanted me to feel welcome. You are welcome. That doesn't give Callum permission to move in." Tessa began crying. By evening, she had turned the conversation into proof that I cared more about money than family. Callum comforted her loudly enough for me to hear from the hallway. After that, the takeover happened through dozens of small decisions. They replaced the dining room chairs without asking. Callum started receiving business mail at my address. Tessa hired a pool maintenance company and charged it to my household account. They hosted parties while I was traveling and allowed guests into rooms containing private financial records. Each time I objected, Tessa accused me of controlling her. Then I came home one Thursday and heard drilling behind the library doors. 3 workers were removing the built-in shelves my father had helped me design. My desk and files had been pushed into the corridor. A projector screen covered the wall where Mom's photographs had hung. Callum stood in the middle of the room giving instructions. "What is happening?" I asked. He turned with a mildly irritated expression of someone interrupted in his own office. "I need a professional space for client presentations. This is my library." "It was your library," Tessa said, entering behind me. "You're hardly ever here." I ordered the workers to stop. Callum paid them to continue. That was our first direct confrontation. I walked to the electrical panel and shut off power to the room. The drilling stopped instantly. "You're behaving irrationally," Callum said. "No, I'm preventing unauthorized work on my property." He stepped closer. "You live alone in a mansion with rooms you never use. We're trying to make the place functional." "We?" "Tessa and I are building a future. Then build it somewhere you own." For a moment, the mask disappeared. His jaw tightened, and I saw real anger beneath the polished voice. Then he smiled again. "Families shouldn't speak to each other like this." The hypocrisy almost impressed me. I restored the library, but the incident taught me something. Callum was no longer testing boundaries. He believed time was on his side. The next attack was not against me, it was against Naomi. One Saturday morning, Naomi asked Callum to remove cigar ash from the breakfast terrace before it stained the stone. He told her cleaning was her responsibility. She replied, "Cleaning is my work, disrespect is not." That afternoon, Tessa left Naomi a voice message dismissing her. Naomi came to my office holding her phone, too humiliated to meet my eyes. "Your sister says the household is changing," she whispered. "She says Mr. Reed's family will soon have authority here." I listened to the message twice. Tessa referred to herself and Callum as the future owners. She accused Naomi of refusing to respect the home's new structure. I paid Naomi everything she was owed and told her she was not dismissed. Instead, I placed her on paid leave while I addressed the situation. Later, I helped her secure a comfortable apartment and established a retirement fund in recognition of the years she had cared for my family. But I did not confront Tessa immediately. I wanted to understand why she believed ownership was changing. That evening, I reviewed my personal records. Nothing was missing, but several drawers had been disturbed. Copies of my deed, insurance documents, and mother's medical records were no longer in their original order. I installed discrete security cameras in my private office and transferred important documents to my attorney's secure storage. Then I did something Tessa mistook for surrender. I moved into the guest cottage behind the main house. The cottage had 2 bedrooms, a kitchen, and its own gated entrance. I told Tessa I needed quiet while closing a major development agreement. She tried to hide her satisfaction. "Maybe the space will help everyone," she said. Callum carried one of my suitcases outside. "This is probably healthier for you." They thought they had pushed me out. In reality, I had given them enough freedom to reveal what they intended to do next. From the cottage, I could access the security system, household accounts, and camera feeds. I watched Callum photograph documents in my study. I saw Tessa practice my signature on a yellow legal pad. I recorded them meeting twice with a man who advertised himself online as an estate planning consultant. Although he held no active law license, still, I waited. Suspicion was not enough. I needed evidence of intent. That evidence came during a Sunday dinner in early December. Tessa invited me to the main house, saying she wanted to reset our relationship. The dining room had been decorated for Christmas. Candles glowed beside Mom's old silverware, and Snowflow had begun to collect on the terrace outside. Colum was unusually cheerful. Halfway through dinner, Tessa placed her hand over his. "We have exciting news," she said. I wondered if they were announcing an engagement. Instead, she said, "Callum's parents sold their house in Greenville." "That was quick," I replied. "They received an excellent offer," Callum said. "They complete the sale tomorrow." Tessa smiled. "They're moving here." I set down my fork. "For how long?" "Permanently." Callum leaned back as though the decision required no further discussion. Tessa continued. "They'll use the main suite because it's easier for his father's back. Callum and I will take your old room. We thought you could stay in the cottage." "My old room?" "The room you're not using." "That is my bedroom in my house." Her expression hardened. "This house is far too large for one person to control." Control is another word for ownership when the person speaking does not own anything. Callum's mother, Denise, had visited twice. On both occasions, she had measured rooms with her eyes and made comments about replacing the curtains. His father, Martin, once asked whether the surrounding land could be divided and sold. I looked at Callum. "Your parents will not move into this property." He lifted his glass. "They have already sold their home. That was their decision." Tessa's chair scraped backward. "Why do you always have to punish everyone?" she demanded. "Callum and I are trying to create a family, and you're hiding behind money because you have no family of your own." The cruelty was deliberate. I felt it, but I refused to show her. "What time are they arriving?" I asked. She blinked, surprised by the question. "Around 9 tomorrow morning. They should change their plans." "No," she said. "They are moving in. If you have a problem with it, you can move out." Silence settled over the table. Colum watched me carefully, waiting for anger. I smiled instead. "Understood," I said. Then I finished my wine. Their mistake was assuming that smile meant defeat. 2 weeks earlier, my attorney, Daniel Cross, had helped me establish a limited liability company to hold the property. The transfer was part of a legitimate restructuring of my real estate portfolio. But after seeing Callum photograph my documents, I accelerated it. The company was mine, controlled entirely through a trust. The house still belonged to me, but my sister did not know the ownership structure had changed. More importantly, Daniel had prepared formal notices terminating Tessa and Callum's permission to occupy the residence. Their belongings had to be collected under supervision, and any attempt to re-enter afterward would constitute trespassing. We had delayed serving the notices because I wanted complete evidence of their scheme. That night, they gave it to me. Shortly before midnight, I returned to the terrace, intending to retrieve a file from the study. Voices came through a partially opened window. Colum was speaking to his mother on speakerphone. "Tomorrow is the important part," Denise said. "Once our belongings are inside, Elena cannot simply throw all 4 of us out." "She won't," Tessa replied. "She has no idea what we've prepared." I stopped moving. Colum lowered his voice. "We'll document every confrontation. If she raises her voice or touches anything, we call the police." "And the doctor?" Denise asked. Tessa found the physician who treated Margaret during her final illness. "We can claim Elena's behavior became unstable after her mother died." My fingers went cold. Tessa spoke next. "People already know she isolated herself in the cottage. We'll say she did it because she became paranoid. They had driven me from the main house and planned to use my retreat as proof that I was mentally unwell," Colum continued. "Once we obtain an emergency protective order, she won't be allowed near the property. After that, we challenge her capacity to manage the trust." "What if she sells?" his father asked. "She won't have time," Tessa laughed softly. "Besides, Elena would never sell Mom's house." That sentence told me exactly what they misunderstood. They thought my love for my mother was attached to stone walls. It was not. I stepped away from the window and called Daniel. He answered on the 3rd ring. "Serve everything tonight," I said. "At midnight?" "Yes, and bring security tomorrow morning." There was a pause. "You heard something. I recorded something. Send it to me." Within 30 minutes, Daniel had the audio. Before 2 in the morning, He arranged for a licensed process server to deliver the notices. Callum accepted the envelope through the side door. The camera showed him reading the first page, turning pale, and then carrying it into the library. He opened a desk drawer, placed the notice inside, and locked it. He never told Tessa. That decision ended their relationship before either of them understood it. At 6 the next morning, a professional removal company arrived through the service entrance. Under Daniel's supervision, workers packed Tessa's and Callum's belongings and placed them in a secure storage unit paid for 30 days. At 7, locksmiths changed every exterior lock and reprogrammed the security system. At 8, 2 off-duty police officers working as licensed security personnel took their positions inside the foyer. Daniel brought copies of the deed, occupancy notices, delivery confirmation, and audio recording. At 8:45, I stood inside Mom's empty bedroom for the last time. The bed had been stripped. Snow covered the mountains beyond the glass. I expected to feel devastated, but the room was only a room now. "Goodbye, Mom," I whispered. Then I went downstairs at 9:12. 3 vehicles climbed the driveway. Denai stepped out first, wearing a cream coat and an expression of triumph. Martin followed, directing the movers toward the garage. Their furniture filled 2 trucks. The third contained boxes from the house they had sold the previous day. Tessa hurried outside to greet them. Callum embraced his father and told the movers to start unloading. Denise approached the front door holding the key Tessa had given her. The electronic reader flashed red. She tried again, red. "Tessa, this key doesn't work." "That's impossible." Tessa took it and pressed it against the reader repeatedly. Callum tried his own code. Nothing happened. Then the door opened. Daniel stood in the foyer. "Good morning," he said. "No items may be brought onto the property." Tessa stared past him and saw the security officers. "What is this?" Daniel handed her a copy of the notice. "Your permission to occupy this residence has been terminated. Your personal property has been professionally packed and transferred to secure storage. The address and access instructions are attached." Callum moved forward. "You can't do that. The notices were served last night," Daniel replied. "You signed for them personally." Every face turned toward Callum. Tessa looked confused. "What is he talking about?" Callum said nothing. Daniel produced the digital receipt. Tessa snatched it from him. "You received this. It was a bluff," Callum muttered. "You knew I was handling it." Her voice rose. "You let your parents sell their house without telling us we were being removed?" Denise struck her son's arm with her handbag. Martin began shouting about tenants' rights. Daniel calmly explained that the arrangement had been a revocable personal license, not a tenancy, and that the legal process had been reviewed in advance. Their immediate concern, however, was simpler. Callum's parents had never lived there and had no right to enter. One of the movers approached Martin. "Sir, are we unloading or not?" "The waiting time is billable." Nobody answered him. That was when Tessa finally noticed me. I stood near the staircase in my dark wool coat, holding the small leather case that contained Mom's photographs and Dad's watch. She pushed past Daniel, but a security officer raised one hand. "Elena," she said, "tell them this is a misunderstanding." "It isn't. You can't throw me out. I'm your sister. You planned to have me declared mentally incompetent." Her face emptied of color. Callum recovered first. "That is a ridiculous accusation." I held up my phone and played part of the recording. His own voice filled the foyer. "Once we obtain an emergency protective order, she won't be allowed near the property." The silence afterward was absolute. Denise looked at me, then at her son. Martin stopped shouting. Tessa's keys slipped from her hand and struck the marble with a sharp metallic crack. "What have you done?" she whispered. "I protected myself." "No, what have you done with the house?" That was the question she truly cared about. I looked around the foyer. The staircase Mom had decorated at Christmas, the library Dad had helped design, and the rooms where grief had nearly swallowed me. "I sold it." Her mouth fell open. Callum shook his head. "No, you transferred it to a company." "Yes, my company. It completed the sale yesterday." Daniel explained that a private wellness group had purchased the estate for use as an executive recovery retreat. The buyers had agreed to take possession immediately and renovate the interior. The closing funds were already secure. Tessa stared at me as if I had burned down the building. "You sold Mom's home?" "No, I sold my house. She loved this place. She loved us. There is a difference. You did this to punish me. I did this because you mistook my love for permission to destroy me." She began crying, but for once I did not rush to comfort her. Outside, the movers asked again where they should take the trucks. Martin and Denise had no answer. Their former house belonged to its new owner, and this house had never belonged to them. I picked up Tessa's keys from the floor and placed them in Daniel's palm. Then I walked outside. She followed me onto the steps. "Where am I supposed to go?" "Your belongings are in storage. Daniel has paid for a hotel room for 7 nights. After that, you will need to make your own arrangements." 7 nights? I'm your family. I gave you 2 years. She grabbed my sleeve. "You cannot leave me with nothing." I gently removed her hand. "You had a home, safety, food, and every opportunity to rebuild your life. You traded them for a promise from a man who wanted property more than he wanted you." Behind her, Callum was arguing with his father. Denise stood crying beside the trucks. The perfect family alliance was already collapsing. Tessa lowered her voice. "Please, Elena." For one painful second, I saw the little girl who used to climb into my bed during thunderstorms. But that girl had not practiced my signature. She had not photographed my private records. She had not planned to use my grief as evidence of insanity. "I hope you build a better life," I said. "But you will not build it on top of mine." I entered my car and drove away. Tessa called before I reached the bottom of the mountain. I let the phone ring. Over the following weeks, the consequences unfolded quickly. Callum's parents moved into a furnished rental outside Hendersonville. Because their previous home had sold, they were forced to pay storage charges, hotel bills, and a costly short-term lease. Their anger focused almost entirely on Callum. Denise claimed he had guaranteed them permanent residence. Martin accused him of ruining their retirement. Callum blamed Tessa for failing to obtain any legal interest in the property. Tessa blamed him for hiding the notice. Their engagement ended within a month. Then Callum attempted to sue me, claiming I had unlawfully interfered with his business and damaged his reputation. He withdrew the case after Daniel's response included the audio recording, camera footage, and evidence that he had accessed confidential documents. A criminal investigation followed regarding the copied records and forged signatures. I did not exaggerate what happened or pursue revenge. I simply provided the evidence when asked. Callum eventually accepted a plea agreement involving probation, restitution, and a prohibition against contacting me. Tessa was not charged with the most serious offenses, but the investigation frightened her. For the first time, tears and family connections could not erase the consequences. She sent me letters. The first blamed Callum, the second blamed grief, the third finally blamed herself. I read each one, but I did not reply. Forgiveness, I learned, does not require renewed access. 18 months later, my life looks nothing like it did on that snowy morning. I bought a smaller home near downtown Asheville with large windows, a peaceful garden, and exactly enough rooms for the life I actually live. Nothing echoes. Nothing feels like a monument to loss. Naomi lives 10 minutes away in a condominium I purchased for her when the estate sale closed. She protested for weeks, insisting it was too generous. "It is not charity," I told her. "It is gratitude. We have dinner together twice a month. Sometimes we talk about Mom. Sometimes we talk about everything except Mom." Both feel healthy now. The former Hillside estate reopened recently as a private rehabilitation and wellness center. The library became a counseling room. The terrace is used for group breakfasts, and Mom's bedroom now overlooks a meditation garden. I thought seeing photographs would hurt. Instead, I felt relieved. The house had stopped being a battlefield. As for Tessa, I know only what Naomi heard through an old family friend. She works at a furniture showroom and rents a modest apartment with another woman. She no longer speaks to Callum. Perhaps she has changed. Perhaps she has merely learned to survive without me. Either way, her future belongs to her now. For years, I believed protecting my younger sister meant rescuing her from every difficult consequence. I thought love required endless patience, endless forgiveness, and an unlocked door. I was wrong. Sometimes the most dangerous people in your life are not strangers. They are the ones who know your wounds, understand your loyalties, and believe those loyalties will prevent you from defending yourself. Tessa knew I loved our mother. She knew I hated confrontation. She knew I felt responsible for her. What she did not know was that grief had already taught me the hardest lesson of all. Everything can be lost. A parent, a home, a relationship. Even the version of someone you desperately wanted to believe was real. But losing something is not always the same as being defeated. Sometimes you let go of the house so you can save the life being destroyed inside it. And sometimes When someone tells you to leave your own home, the strongest answer is not an argument. It is a changed lock, a recorded truth, and the sound of their keys falling uselessly onto the floor.